The Romans introduced the custom of keeping to the left, a habit that was reinforced in medieval times when riders throughout Europe passed oncoming strangers sword arm to sword arm. This idea is based on the fact that the majority of people are right-handed.
Water for public supply can be obtained from underground sources by wells sunk into aquifers, or from surface sources, such as purpose-built reservoirs or lakes and rivers. The safety of the water is of utmost concern. Several million people die each year after consuming contaminated water.
The unusual natural illumination in the building, coming from around and below the viewer rather than above, has the effect of shocking the viewer out of their usual way of seeing and encouraging visitors to bring a fresh eye to the art. The upper level is mainly used for special exhibits, for example, large-scale sculptures or paintings.
The cinema did not emerge as a form of mass consumption until its technology evolved from the initial peep show format to the point where images were projected on a screen in a darkened theater. In the peep show format, a film was viewed through a small opening in a machine that was created for that purpose.
Goods produced by factories were not as finished or elegant as those done by hand, and pride in craftsmanship gave way to the pressure to increase rates of productivity. The new methods of doing business involved a new and stricter sense of time. Factory life necessitated a more regimented schedule, where work began at the sound of a bell and workers kept machines going at a constant pace.
Psychological researchers generally recognize that facial expressions reflect emotional states. In fact, various emotional states give rise to certain patterns of electrical activity in the facial muscles and in the brain. The facial feedback hypothesis argues, however, that the causal relationship between emotions and facial expressions can also work in the opposite direction.
Hills and mountains are often regarded as the epitome of permanence, successfully resisting the destructive forces of nature, but in fact they tend to be relatively short-lived in geological terms.
Natural science is a branch of science concerned with the description, prediction, and understanding of natural phenomena, based on empirical evidence from observation and experimentation. Mechanisms such as peer review and repeatability of findings are used to try to ensure the validity of scientific advances.
Legislation is made so that everyone in society knows which behaviors are acceptable and which are not. Laws cover all aspects of our lives, including protecting the health and safety of people at work and those affected by work activities, including those who receive care and support.
A vaccine is a biological preparation that provides active acquired immunity to a particular infectious disease. A vaccine typically contains an agent that resembles a disease-causing microorganism and is often made from weakened or killed forms of the microbe, its toxins, or one of its surface proteins.
By the mid-19th century, the quest to map the Martian surface had reached a fever pitch. Through a telescope, its milky, shadowy face swam in and out of resolution. So night after night, astronomers would stare at the hazy sphere and draw its features by hand. In the absence of photography, these maps were considered authoritative representations of truth.
Individual birds may be sensitive enough to identify each other through their calls. Many birds that nest in colonies can locate their chicks using their calls. Calls are sometimes distinctive enough for individual identification even by human researchers involved in ecological studies.
Demographic change can influence the underlying growth rate of the economy. Structural productivity growth, living standards, savings rates, consumption, and investment. It can influence the long-run unemployment rate and equilibrium interest rate. Housing market trends. The demand for financial assets.
People who feel they sleep perfectly well may still be troubled by excessive daytime sleepiness because of a variety of underlying medical illnesses. A sleep disturbance may be a symptom of a health issue or an adverse effect of therapy to treat the problem. The stress of chronic illness can also cause insomnia and daytime drowsiness.
Like an abstract, a summary is just a condensed write-up on the topic discussed in your paper. However, summaries are more open-ended than abstracts, and can contain much more varied information. They can be included in virtually any type of paper, and do not have a specific word count limit.
Deafness is a sensory disability responsible for communication disorder, sometimes impairing social life. In children, the hearing is an important concern for all stakeholders, and systematic neonatal screening may be called for. On the other hand, in the adult, it is rarely tested, and patients come for consultation when their audiometric status is already badly impaired. Up to 1 million plant and animal species face extinction, many within decades, because of human activities. Without drastic action to conserve habitats, the rate of species extinction, already tens to hundreds of times higher than the average across the past 10 million years, will only increase.
Farmers have begun to use agricultural drones adorned with cameras to improve the treatment of their crops. The drones allow farmers a unique perspective that previously used satellite imagery could not provide. They help to expose issues with irrigation treatment, soil variation, and distressed plants at a much lower cost than methods like crop imaging with a manned aircraft.
Neuroscientists have worked for decades to better understand how the brain functions. Recent advances in brain mapping technology have made that ambitious task easier. An international team of researchers at the Human Brain Project has created a three-dimensional atlas of the brain. The map's resolution is 50 times better than in previous efforts.
The insults and criticism were not unexpected. What was surprising was people's enthusiasm about the competition. Thousands have participated in the discussion.